Live from the Bob Levy Broadcast Center, overlooking the Toms River. It's time to get up, get out, do something. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Be a part of the show, 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Good morning and welcome back to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. It is Wednesday, August 24th. It is 7:08. I'm being told it's 61 degrees outside. It's going to be 93% humidity today, so I'm sure that feels a lot hotter than 61 degrees. A high of 67. It is hump day. It is Wednesday, which means we are joined by somebody from Community Medical Center, and I am glad to be joined this morning by Dr. Amor Mehta, who is a board-certified neurologist and specializes in epilepsy at the Epilepsy Center at the J. and Linda Grunin Neuroscience Institute at Community Medical Center. So good morning.
Good morning, Phil.
Glad to have you here this morning. And, it's always, I always try to prep when we're having guests and to do a little research. Mm-hmm. When it comes to doctors, I'm out of my league. So I just kind of say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about what you do. We're going to talk about the hospital because that's really what the people want to hear, and they don't want to hear me talk.
Okay.
So with that, give me a little bit about your background, yourself, where you came from, and how you ended up as a board-certified neurologist.
Okay. Well, I'm a New Jersey boy through and through. I grew up in North Jersey, a town called Watchung, and Gillette, New Jersey.
Did you go to Watchung Hills High School?
I did. I went to Watchung Hills Regional High School.
I went to Franklin High School.
Okay, so we're Somerset County.
Somerset County. I live to tell about it.
Okay.
As I always say.
Yeah, and I did medical school up in Westchester County at New York Medical College, and ended up doing my internship at used to be UMDNJ Newark. It's now called Rutgers Newark Medical New Jersey Medical School. End up doing all my neurology residency training at NYU Medical Center, and since NYU is the largest epilepsy center in the world and has the most complicated epilepsy patients, at the end of residency, I was kind of debating about what type of fellowship I wanted to do. And as NYU had a lot of epilepsy patients and I was exposed to it, I said, let me move into the world of epilepsy. I have always been the type of person who was into being like a detective, so to speak, and neurology is a specialty within the world of medicine where there is a lot of unknowns. And, through the powers of deductive reasoning and, just really searching, I thought that my personality, who is more of a detective-like in that sense, really fit with epilepsy because, in the world of epilepsy, it's people, only think of epilepsy as about seizures, but epilepsy is a syndrome, and syndromes usually are associated with multiple different symptoms that normally don't relate together, and all of a sudden in a syndrome, all these symptoms kind of relate with each other and are associated with each other. I ended up doing a fellowship at NYU, and where Dr. Orrin Devinsky, who's considered to be one of the world's leading epilepsy specialists in the world, really took a liking to me, and I was lucky that my second year of fellowship, he took me under his wing, and I learned from the master himself in terms of how to diagnose, treat, manage, and do things in the world of pediatric and adult epilepsy. So that's where I got into the epilepsy world. When I was kind of going on and talking about what epilepsy is as a syndrome, it's not just about seizures, but there can be personality changes in people that develop for years before people have their first seizure. There can be changes in cognition, more likely short-term memory problems than anything. There can be changes with the ability to learn and remember things. There can be issues with emotional control, anxiety, and many times patients who have epilepsy, they may see all sorts of different specialists for each symptom of their underlying epileptic diagnosis. And before they actually see an epileptologist like myself, they come in with 5 or 6 different diagnoses from mild cognitive issues, depression and anxiety, some emotional ability issues, random stomach pains or irritable bowel syndrome. And a lot of the times, as an epileptologist, trying to see the forest amongst the trees, you can oftentimes, taking a good history, relate many, many symptoms to one diagnosis, and many times it's an epileptic diagnosis. Obviously, history is the most important part of developing a diagnosis for a patient, but we do a lot of objective testings to confirm what our suspicion is initially after that first visit.
So you just said something interesting, and I want to make sure I understood. So you're actually saying that you could actually diagnose somebody who has the onset of epilepsy even before they've had a seizure?
I can, through a very careful history, asking about very specific type of things. Many times I can elicit that patients have been having what we call epileptic auras, and auras are very small seizures in and of themselves. Usually auras involve small seizure activity involving very small portions of the brain. The temporal lobes of the brain, which are the sides of your brain, are kind of the most mysterious portions of the brain. They do a lot of different things, from taste processing, smell processing, complex visual motion processing, sense of where we are in position to the world around us, et cetera, et cetera. And many times I ask people very specific questions. Do you get very frequent and vivid deja vu spells? Do you get gustatory hallucinations, which are little taste hallucinations, a very common aura with temporal lobe epileptics? People sometimes develop a strong metallic taste in their mouth. Or sometimes people develop an olfactory hallucination corresponding to an aura involving the olfactory or smell area of the brain. Many people describe that they smell burnt toast or something of that nature, where no one else around them can smell. And many people end up saying, "Doc, I can't remember anything. I get these weird spells." And a lot of the patients don't know to relate some of these weird things to what might be part of their overall diagnosis. And that's why the clinician, like an epilepsy specialist or very knowledgeable neurologist, will be able to elicit some pieces of information even before a patient has their first larger type of seizure.
In this day and age, you go to a doctor and, sometimes you're lucky to get 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. I'm listening to what you're saying. This sounds like somebody's coming to see you, and this is like an in-depth hours. You're going to really find out everything from what gum they chewed as a child straight through to what they've done yesterday.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the problem with American medicine and many times our doctors sometimes just don't have the time that they need to spend to really figure out what's going on. And I think that leads to pursuing diagnostic red herrings, so to speak. For each of my new patients, I have an hour block with the patient. It's necessary and I demand it just because I need to have that time to really get a good history. I can't get a good history from a patient only seeing him or her for 15 minutes or 30 minutes at the first visit. I want to spend that whole hour getting a good history, doing a good physical examination, really developing what my diagnostic impression is, and then based on what my diagnostic impression is, cater my workup to either prove or disprove what I am thinking. And I think a lot of the times, too, considering that the history is the most important aspect of developing a diagnosis for an epileptic syndrome, many people rely too much on the testing. EEGs, for example, is one of the mainstay of what we do to diagnose these types of disorders. Most doctors order routine EEGs, which were a 20 to 30-minute study. Most patients are awake. Many times those EEG studies are insufficient, especially when we're considering a diagnosis of what we call focal epilepsy or partial onset epilepsy, meaning that there's a part of the brain that's capable of seizing. That's where we utilize a little bit more long-term type of EEG studies called a video EEG study or an ambulatory EEG study. At Community Medical Center, we have the ability to do 24 hours a day video EEG monitoring.
That's a great place. I'm going to stop you right there because I want to talk a little bit more about video EEGs and the studies we do here at Community Medical Center, and we'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
Everything you need to know about the Jersey Shore. This is Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Connect with Jeremy, 732-505-1160. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160, 1310, and WOBMAM.com.
Good morning. Welcome back to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. I am Phil Brilliant, substituting for Jeremy this morning, and we are here talking to Dr. Amor Mehta, who is a board-certified neurologist at Community Medical Center, and we are talking about epilepsy, and we went to break talking about equipment that is used in the video EEG monitoring at Community Medical Center. Tell us a little bit more about that.
All right. Well, the unit that I run at Community is the Level 3 Epilepsy Monitoring Unit. We are accredited by the National Association of Epilepsy Centers as a comprehensive epilepsy center. It's considered to be Level 3 status, meaning that we can do pretty much everything, both from diagnosing and treating epileptic disorders in adults and children, except for epilepsy surgery. Epilepsy surgery usually requires a Level 4 epilepsy center with epilepsy neurosurgeons. That's something that's we'll be working on in the future to try to develop that type of focus too. But what we do at Community Medical Center, we have a wonderful team. We have ABRET certified, that's the American Board of Registered Electroencephalography Technologists. We have the most wonderful team of electroencephalography technologists that I've ever worked with, including when I was at NYU. When I came here, I was very blessed to work with Ron Abel, David Janarone, Megan Gifford, and Sangeeta Patel, who are led by Brian Summers, who's the director of the epilepsy technology team. With my team in place and through my direction, we've been able to develop the ability to do 8 video EEG monitoring studies. Now, what a video EEG monitoring study is we have equipment and we have rooms that are capable of recording by video any of the patient's activities and the concurrent ability to record the EEG and the brain waves. Many times when it comes to diagnosing epileptic disorders with spells that sound a little odd but may potentially be focal onset seizures, we have the ability to actually see a patient have a seizure in front of us, correlate what we see on the video with what we're seeing on the brainwaves. Many times it's important to actually characterize events as being epileptic or non-epileptic, because many people can have non-epileptic spells, not realize it, and those don't need to be on anti-epileptic medications. There are about 10 to 15% of patients with epilepsy who have considered to be medically refractory epilepsy. What that means is no matter what medication they are on, no matter what dosages, no matter what combination of medications these patients are on, they continue to have recurrent unprovoked seizures. Now, there is an entity, and one of the reasons why I'm very strict with some patients, there's an entity that's called SUDEP, that stands for Sudden Unexpected Death in Epilepsy. Statistically speaking, and actually the New York Times just today has an article about SUDEP in epilepsy and how a lot of neurologists don't really talk about it. But 1 in 1,000 up to 1 in 10,000 patients who have an epileptic diagnosis will die of SUDEP, sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. Many of the patients who are most at risk for it are those who tend to have uncontrolled seizures. However, there are some patients that have had well-controlled epilepsy, and the morning a parent or a girlfriend or a husband sees their loved one who suffers from this condition not wake up in the morning, and they're gone. And the things that keep me up at night are my group of refractory patients, knowing that this entity SUDEP occurs. I will do my best to make sure that my patients are well under control. If I have to bring in patients for video EEG monitoring studies, I will. A lot of the times, a lot of patients don't want to believe what I have to say, and that gets to the heart of seeing is believing. And when you can't see when you can't see physically what's wrong in the brain, it's hard for patients to understand the importance of why.
People always find it very hard to believe what they're hearing, and that's why you do this better than anybody in the area, and that's why New Jersey Biz gave you an award this year, which we're going to talk about when we come back after the news. There's going to be more with Dr. Amor Mehta, board-certified neurologist from Community Medical Center, after the break. Back in a moment.
Coming up next, the latest from WOBM News, the Town Square, New Jersey News Network, and Fox News Radio. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Live from Town Square Towers, at the heart of the Jersey Shore. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Get up, get out, do something. Join the conversation, 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Good morning. Welcome back to Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. I am Phil Brilliant, and we are here with Dr. Amor Mehta, who is a board-certified neurologist at Community Medical Center, and he is the 2016 New Jersey Biz Healthcare Heroes Physician of the Year Award winner. Congratulations.
Thank you, Phil.
And we were talking a little about that. So you went to the ceremony not knowing you won.
Well, I was surprised to begin with. I mean, I'm relatively young in my career. I'm 36 years old, but I am pretty well experienced with epilepsy, having trained and been one of the only boarded epilepsy specialists in southern New Jersey. There is a ceremony back in June. Earlier in the year, I was nominated as a finalist for the Physician of the Year award. I was surprised by that, considering my relative youth, and the other nominees are 20 to 30 years ahead of me in terms of their career, and directors of a transplant service or oncology service or something of that nature. So I went in thinking, there's me, I'm a young guy, and these guys have had many years ahead of me, not expecting anything. And lo and behold, at the ceremony, they announced that, I was the winner of the Physician of the Year. So I was pretty shocked and amazed at it.
Now, did you have your Emmy Award-winning speech ready?
Well, luckily, they didn't have a speech.
Okay.
I'm a pretty shy personality to begin with, so I was thankful for that.
And you've done great on radio. You've done fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think it shows. You talk about the fact that you're young,
mm-hmm.
but you've made a splash very early in your career. And I think by just me listening to you today, a couple things come out. One is that you care about each and every patient like they're your family.
That's nice that you mentioned that. I actually treat each of my patients like my family. And sometimes with families, we have disagreements, and my patients will very well know, and if they're listening, they know me for sure, that if I disagree with something, they will know about it. Right. And if I agree with something and if I feel that they're doing very well, they'll know about it too. It's a bit of tough love, but I do treat each of my patients like I would treat my own brother, sister, mother, father, son.
Yeah. And again, I think it's also too, this is, the diagnosis. You talked about a long process. You talked about spending time with people. It's not just the individual, but it's their family. It's
exactly.
The witnesses. It's really getting a good background.
It's not just treating the patient. Yeah. It's treating the whole family. One thing with epilepsy is it's a very, very scary diagnosis for people, and many patients who suffer from an epileptic diagnosis, which, by the way, epilepsy, the definition of, it's a disorder of the brain where people have a tendency to have recurrent, unprovoked seizures. Anyway, on that tangent, patients need to have someone who serves as their advocate. And I always tell patients that we are in this together as a team. I will hold their hand and get them through whatever they're suffering initially. We will work our best to make sure that not only are they seizure-free, but they have a good quality of life. Because treatment, it's not just about getting patients seizure-free. Life is important. Life happens, and quality of life happens. I can shoot people up with high doses of medications and get them seizure-free. But if they're like zombies on the medication, what's the point?
That's not quality of life.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, how do people find you? How do they get appointments with you? what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So I work with a private practice. I'm at Shore Neurology. It's Route 37 West in Toms River, New Jersey. Our phone number is 732-240-4787. Also, people can reach out to Community Medical Center and they can get my information through the hospital as well. I am both an adult and pediatric epileptologist. My youngest patient is less than 1 year old, and my oldest patient is over 100 years old. So I see the full gamut of epilepsy from premature kids up until adults. One thing is with a lot of the pediatric cases, considering that we don't have a lot of pediatric subspecialists, nor at Community do we have a pediatric ICU. Our sister hospital at Monmouth Medical Center, which does have a pediatric ICU, many times more refractory pediatric cases go up to Monmouth or to St. Barnabas Livingston.
Right.
But I'm able to manage initially anyone with an epileptic disorder.
So give us our phone number one more time, how people get a hold of you at Shore Neurology.
So I'm located at Shore Neurology, 633 Route 37 West in Toms River. Our phone number is 732-240-4787. I'm available for new appointments anytime.
Okay. It has been my pleasure this morning to interview Dr. Amor Mehta, the board-certified neurologist at Community Medical Center. We talked about epilepsy. I appreciate your time. I know you're going to go right to work and be in the hospital in a matter of a minute.
All right. And I'm board-certified in neurology and board-certified in epilepsy. I'm double board-certified.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time, and we'll be back in a moment.